Hey, welcome to BIA Live. I am your host, Kevin Noon. It is Tuesday, 12 noon here in Pickerington, Ohio. I had to think about all that for a second. We're trying out a new platform today with Ecamm Live. I'm not here to advertise for them or anything else, but we're just trying something out because we want to be able to bring you the best show that we can in terms of some of the bells and whistles. So be sure to mark in with comments and things of that nature. I'm curious to see how some of these things work. I'm on a free trial right now, so good opportunity to do some things before things really ramp up. But, busy week at hand coming up here. We have the start of Big Ten Media Days on Thursday. We have the TBT getting underway, at least in Carmen Cruz region. It's already underway in two of the other regions at this point. And we got recruiting. We got a lot of questions out there. So be sure to jump in with your questions. Make sure that I see what it is that you want us to talk about, because ultimately at the end of the day, you guys are the ones that program this show. You guys are the ones with your comments, with your questions, with your super chat contributions. You decide what it is that we're going to talk about. You're the ones that get me when I want to do a 45-minute show, get me to talk for an hour and 15 or an hour and 45, because we're having a great back and forth and just talking about everything. So be sure to jump in with your questions, jump in with your comments. Doing this one a little bit differently, not doing it directly through the YouTube portal. So maybe I'm not necessarily seeing the comments as they jump up. I'm going to try and open that up as we are talking, just so I don't miss out, because again, I am not exactly sure 100% what some of the differences are in terms of how the portal spits things out and what it is that I see versus what you see. So I want to make sure that's all there. But be sure to jump in, questions and comments, and we'll get going from there. But as I open this up and hopefully don't blow myself out with hold on. There we go. I've muted it out. I just want to make sure I didn't get into a feedback loop where I was getting my audio getting fed back to me. But I want to have that chat in front of me to make sure that comments are not going into top chat that I wouldn't normally see. There we go. Let me do that. And let me drop my lower third. And let me bring that back. And there we go. And when will the 2023 class start to drop? Okay, we will get to that one in a minute, I promise. And we're going to talk about recruiting, because ultimately, at the end of the day, that's what we talk about the most here. That's where your interest is, and I'm certainly here to serve what it is you want to hear about. So we will talk about that in a minute. I promise. Where goes one? We will get to that. But let's start, and I'm going to. This is one of these new tools that we have here in terms of this platform, to where I can share my screen a little bit more. We can watch some video, things of that nature. Rivals.com recently dropped some updated video of Quinn Ewers from the opening, from the 7-on-7 event. Less than a minute of footage. Again, we're not able to shoot up top. We're not necessarily getting a full roster script of throws, but still some really good video of him. So let me jump to that and see if I can make this work as we are trying things out. And I can talk over this as well. Now remember, here at the opening, he is there with some of the best of the best. I mean, not everybody's able to make it out to the opening, even if they're invited, but he's definitely not throwing to the guys off the block, and that's it. He has the opportunity to throw to some talented guys. He's certainly going to be throwing to talented guys when it comes down to playing at Ohio State. Obviously, he's already quite familiar with Caleb Burton down in Austin. So he's going to have that familiarity right there, and we come to an end there. So let me bring myself back in. There we go. Let me bring this question off for now. We will bring that back when we do talk about the 2023 class. And be sure to give us a thumbs up if you like the show. Be sure to subscribe, hit the bell. All of that helps us with the algorithm to make sure that we get out to more and more Buckeye fans. All of that very important. But what are your thoughts on Quinn Ewers? I mean, obviously, we're still sitting in a quarterback battle right now at Ohio State between C.J. Stroud and Jack Miller and Kyle McCord, and no starter's been named. I think that there's a belief that everybody is ready to just put CJ into that position. Certainly have talked to a lot of people who seem to think that he may be the guy, but we don't know until we know. I mean, September 3rd, team trots out there, TCF Bank Stadium. I think it may even be getting a name change at this point, but Minnesota's home stadium. We'll know at that point. Ohio State, I had a chance to speak with a spokesperson at Ohio State. Don't expect depth charts coming out this year. I mean, honestly, the only depth chart of any consequence to begin with is going to be the first one. That's going to be the one everybody's going to focus on. But somebody who was over at my house for a cookout that I had, and we're going to talk about cooking out here later in the show if time permits. We're going to have the opportunity to be able to, thanks December 86. I love doing this show for you all. So, thank you so much for the kind comments. It goes back to the Jim Tressel days. Jim Tressel, I mean, we did get a weekly depth chart, and it was a situation of where it was like, he was asked about that depth chart, and he's like, do you mean my depth chart or former Ohio State sports information director Steve Snapp's depth chart? And, again, that goes to show that there is this pressure for a depth chart to be released for the media. The media certainly wants one. The public certainly wants one. There probably is some conversation between sports information and maybe a lower level member of the team staff, but it isn't necessarily a case where Ryan Day, Urban Meyer, Jim Tressel, whoever is going to sit down with the sports information director or one of his assistants and be like, well, let's go through this. Let's figure this out. Let's talk about this. No, we like this guy over here. Be sure to let the media know this. Coaches are a paranoid lot to begin with. I mean, they really don't want to have a ton of information out there. I think that if they could do this job without a ton of media coverage, they understand that there certainly is a necessity to it. But with that being said, I think they also understand that why am I going to sit there and put information out there that is going to give information to the other team? We're in a day and an age now where we're getting availability reports, whether or not we're getting that the day before the game, the day of the game. I think we saw those drag a little bit later because of COVID and just some HIPAA violations, making sure not to get too much information out there. Somebody's calling me right during the show, of course. Not wanting to get a lot of that stuff out there, not really knowing who you're going to have at any given point. So, with that being said, they didn't want to get information out there that was necessarily going to be wrong. I don't think it's a case that they're going to be that concerned about us being led astray. I think it's just more of a matter of fulfilling whatever their obligations are to provide some sort of information. This isn't the NFL. We're not getting daily reports about who's practicing, who's not practicing, questionable, probable, doubtful, all of that stuff. That's just not where we are in the college game. Maybe we need to go there. Maybe, and that is not tied hand in hand with name, image, likeness, but as we see more of I don't know if I want to say a professionalization of college football, but as we see more aspects there, I mean, do we see more NFL type rules in terms of access or whatnot come in? I don't know. I mean, it's an interesting thought, but so you sit there and you look at that situation and what are your thoughts? I mean, would you look at a depth chart that comes out on Friday or Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday and be like, well, this is, the de facto depth chart. This is going to be what's going to happen. This is going to be what we're going to see. Or do you look at that? Have you been conditioned at this point to have a little bit of a jaded look at it? So I don't know. It creates some, interesting thoughts in terms of what that situation is going to be. But, let's, while we're talking about this, I want to get back into the recruiting. I'm going to get back to where goes one. Let me bring up his answer. I see Quinn starting in 2023. So, that's giving 2 years. 2021 is this upcoming season, 2022. So whether it's Jack Miller or CJ Stroud, that's 2 years starting. That's 3 and done for one of those guys. That's certainly not a case for somebody like Kyle McCord. Because Kyle McCord would only be 2 years into the system at that point. He wouldn't be, he wouldn't necessarily have, some of the same opportunities. So, I don't know. I definitely think that Quinn Ewers comes in and we'll see playing time pretty quick as soon as he picks up the offense. I really think that there's a possibility for all of that, but it's really hard to sit there and call for a quarterback change without seeing a single snap of any of the guys that they have on the roster right now. So, I don't know. We have. Let me jump in here. Yeah, no, I'm sorry, I punched that off. December 86 agreeing about saying Kyle McCord is starting in 23. I certainly could see a situation where maybe you have, a year or two of Stroud or Miller, and then you have McCord come in and he has a busy year. Let's remember, we're not dealing with a situation of where we're seeing a lot of JT Barrett 4-year starters anymore. We had 2 years of Justin Fields. We had 1 year of Dwayne Haskins. I think we're going to see with the portal and with how things are moving, I think we're going to see less and less lifers at your major college programs because there's just going to be this push to get guys through the system. And I just think it's going to be difficult to maintain quarterback rooms. So, you don't want to get to a point of where you burn through guys just to try and get through them. It's like you don't want to waste anything. The goal is to win now. If you're programming for a year or two down the line in terms of who you're playing now, you may be sitting in the stands at that point if you're a coach. And for all the goodwill that you have, winning a national championship or not winning a national championship, certainly in Ryan Day's situation, he hasn't lost a regular season game in his 2 years as head coach, 2 years plus 3 games. So, there's a lot to be said about that, but you sit there and things start to go awry and patience starts to get thin. So you need to be mindful of all of that. Let me jump in here. John Childs jumps in. Has Ohio State given up on the top O-line recruits for 2022? Let me bring this up. I'm playing with, some new tools here on Ecamm Live. If I do end up purchasing this, the bug that's up in the upper right of the screen will disappear. But let's go to the offer list. And let me bring that up on my screen. Let me get to 2022, and then I will share my screen with you all. All right, here we are for Rivals.com. And let's get into the offensive tackles to begin with. So, they're still very much in the race for Cam Dewberry. Very much in the race. I think I currently have a future cast for Ohio State to land Cam Dewberry. Zach Rice is somebody I've always felt might be a little bit more of a challenge to land. Whether it's Notre Dame that makes the move on him. There was a minute where it looked like UVA might be the team. UNC certainly had his eye at some point, but I wouldn't say that it's necessarily disappearing. Good win at Kentucky. Ohio State's not giving up there. Excuse me for a second. Not giving up at this moment. So you have that going on. Addison Nichols, he's released to top 3. Probably going to Tennessee, but we're still talking about he's a Rivals 250 caliber type of player. Nobody, nothing to sneeze at that point. Jalen Early. That one seems to be trending maybe a little bit more toward Florida State. And then, in-state, Emil Wagner, he's a 4-star, 5.8. So, he's still kind of at the end of the 250. I still consider him a top guy. Maybe he doesn't capture the eye of the recruiting fan as much as a 5-star Cam Dewberry. But Emil Wagner can play ball, guys. He's really good. And, I think the biggest issue there is while Ohio State may be big game hunting, are you not putting enough attention to your in-state guy? So maybe there's a little bit of concern there. With guard Ernest Green out of St. John Bosco, same high school that produced Wyatt Davis. I really like Ohio State's chances there. So nothing to say that they're going to swing and miss there. I mean, he's got a rivals ranking of a 6.0 in the RR, which means he's a top 50 type of player. Since he's not a 5-star, probably between 28 and 50, so still really talented player there. They're going. I think they're going to do fine. I think they're going to do just fine in terms of offensive line recruiting. So there's no reason to sit there and say, well, they're kind of toast at that point. Maybe they're just not necessarily grabbing the headlines there, but a lot of people want to be critical of where their offensive line recruiting is, and I think a lot of that comes from when they missed on Jackson Carmen, an in-state guy. Blake Miller, they didn't land Blake Miller this year. Certainly some guys that have gotten away, but for every one of those guys that go out, I mean, obviously getting Paris Johnson out of Cincinnati, I mean, that was a must get. I mean, I don't like throwing the term must-have recruit, but he was about a must-have recruit. You go down to Houston, you land Donovan Jackson, the 5-star offensive guard. I mean, it's not like they're not able to recruit, but I do think that there is a concern that maybe they do look a little bit more at the 2 or the 3 stars. It's not a 2-star program. They don't really recruit 2s unless it's a kicker punter, and that's just the nature of that type of recruiting. So, you see a 3-star and everybody gets used to seeing 5-star defensive linemen, 5-star corners, 5-star receivers, and there's just this natural assumption that Ohio State's offensive line recruiting may be deficient. And, I want to kind of try and steer people away from that as much as I can. Ultimately, that's your decision. You're going to make the decision whether or not you believe that to be true or you don't. I mean, I can give you my expert opinion of what I believe to be the case. So I think that they're fine. But, talking about top, let me find this right there. When will JTT show his presence on the defense? I mean, and no depth chart. So, we're going to have to see. I mean, we're not that far away removed from when your freshmen were reporting in July. But, I think one of the detriments is going to be that JT Tuimoloau has not been able to work out with Coach Mick's program without his, once you commit, Ohio State can at least then pass along, hey, if I were you, this is what I would be doing in terms of working out and things of that nature. And that's not to say that JTT is going to come in and be weak like, me or something like that. I mean, this is a 5-star athlete able to do a lot out there, but you see these guys coming in just, tops of their games and whatnot, and they go through the conditioning test, and that test kicks their butt. I mean, just kicks their butt, because it's, there's one thing about, when I was going to the gym more often, I had my routine. I'd do 30 minutes of cardio, and then there were about 5 machines that I liked, all upper body. I love skipping leg day, apparently, all upper body. And, I would mix up the order I would do the machines, thinking, oh, well, I can, I won't have the muscle memory issues there. But if you put me in any sort of real physical challenge, I guarantee you I'd be tapping out in 3 seconds. So, make that into something more relevant in terms of talking about these kids. I mean, I think it's going to take him maybe a little bit of time. I think he's going to have to earn that playing time. He's going to have to earn, 15 snaps, 20 snaps. I think he's going to be somebody that you put out there in a Rushman package. Maybe you line him up inside in the Rushman package. You put Harrison and Sawyer outside, and you put, or you put, Tyreek Smith, and maybe you put whoever else and JTT inside, when there's not a situation of having to overthink all of these responsibilities, and it's not going to be a running down. You just, get the quarterback or whatnot. I think that's going to be where he's going to have his first success, but he'll get there. I mean, you're not a generational type of player for just being somebody who can't adapt and make these types of moves. But do I expect to see him against Oregon or Minnesota come out there and just have, be this disruptive force? Probably not. But over on Buckeye Grove recently, we did a piece about first-year defensive ends within the system. I highly recommend you go back and find that. I'll try and remember to post that in the comments after the fact. And, we kind of go from there. But, it's not like a lot of guys are coming in and in game 1, game 2, game 3, and they've racked up 5 sacks. That's not how it works. I mean, you can sit there and you can look at the Bosa's, you can look at Chase Young. It took a minute. It took a minute for them to get there. I mean, Chase Young certainly dealt with some injuries year 1, certainly dealt with the overlap with Nick Bosa as well. Then in year 2 and year 3 went on and had insane type of years. So, that's kind of where we are. But let me punch this one out. We're about, 20 minutes in. I want to welcome everybody who's recently jumped in here to BIA Live. I'm your host, Kevin Noon. Want to thank you for being part of the show. Be sure to hit that thumbs up to like the show. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. Like what you see, jump in with a super chat. Would love that as well. I mean, who doesn't love a little hard-earned donation right there? Jump in with the super chat. Every little bit goes back into the development of this show, making it more regular, being able to buy platforms like this, do things of that nature. Certainly not necessary, but if you like what you see, jump in with that super chat. Let me keep going with football questions. I have all this other content prepared, but as I said, you're the guys that are driving this show. You are the guys who make the decisions of what it is we talk about. Robert L. jumping in with Quinn affecting the ability to attract a 5-star running back. And I mean, are you sure, was that running back or was that quarterback? Because, with running back, I don't think that's as much of an issue. Let me jump in and say hi to one of our biggest supporters. How are you doing today? Let me jump back to Robert here. I think that there's an issue in terms of quarterback. Something's got to give at some point. But then you look at Oklahoma. Oklahoma's been able to load quarterback after quarterback. Caleb Williams is now followed by Malachi Nelson. But with Ohio State, you can sit there and say, you get Stroud and Miller, and then you follow that up with McCord, then you follow that up with Ewers. At some point, there is going to be a year to where maybe you do have a little bit of an issue. But I think if you look at Ohio State's 2013 quarterback recruiting, they're spreading a lot more offers out there, because I think it's going to take just the right guy to come in with, and compete directly with Quinn Ewers, because that's going to be the situation. Even in 24, those guys are going to have a little bit more separation. There's going to be an extra pad between Ewers and these guys. So 23 is really going to be the year that it could be. Ohio State might not be landing a top 5 quarterback. It might be somebody between 6 and 10, but it doesn't mean that they're going to go out and just get some schlub just for body count. I mean, you can't do that. You get into those types of situations, and that's where you get into trouble. But I also think we need to look at the fact that Ohio State probably will, when you run into those types of shortfalls, Ohio State could look to the portal, could look at somebody, whether it's like a Gunnar Hoax situation, whether it's Chris Chuginoff, formerly of WVU, somebody who can get in there, be a competent backup, get in there, play some snaps that are meaningful if need be, even when you sit there and you think, all right, this is going to be the Quinn Ewers show. But what you don't want to get into a situation is maybe where Ohio State was year 1 of Justin Fields, and that was, you have Justin Fields, and then what else do you have at that point? What else do you have in terms of guys who are game ready that you trust to go out there and win you the game? We never saw Justin Fields the runner. We never saw Justin Fields the runner that we could have seen, because Ohio State certainly did not have the depth at the position in my mind to be able to get out there and run the risk of him taking that bad hit. And we certainly saw him take a bad hit against Clemson when James Skalski was charged with targeting, and it was a pretty vicious hit. And, we saw a diminished Justin Fields, and we saw that carry over into the Alabama game, where Fields certainly was not 100%. So with that being said, I don't know if we're going to see Ohio State be able to go out and get that top guy in 23. I'm jumping over. I got to remind myself that I've got all of these tools here to now where I can share these things. Let me jump to screen share again. Eli Holstein's already off the board. Malachi Nelson's already off the board. Dante Moore, out of Michigan, very talented kid. Michigan's going to sell its soul to try and land him. You got Dylan Lonergan out of Georgia. You've got Clemson quarterback's cousin Nico out of California. So at this point they put a couple of quarterback offers out there. I think if there is a quarterback that really develops out of the state of Ohio, that's going to be important for Ohio State. For them to find, for them to be able to find that top guy out of Ohio, it's going to be a lot easier in my mind to be able to recruit that guy. December 86, it's DB that I'm worried. I mean, OL will be fine as a DB that I'm worried about. I mean, certainly Ohio State has been able to recruit pretty well in terms of defensive back, but they're deep on they're deep on talent, short on experience in a lot of situations. I mean, when is Cameron Brown going to be 100%? The physical injury, it's just as much of getting over the mental aspect of it. Are we going to see Seven Banks be able to be the guy that the expectations are there? Are we going to see Lathan Ransom be able to maybe jump in and usurp somebody like Josh Proctor at safety? Are they going to run a single high and three corners? Who's going to be that third corner? Is it going to be Marcus Williamson? Is it going to be one of the younger guys? I really like Ryan Watts. I think that Ryan Watts is somebody that's going to be able to step in and have an impact. So, that's certainly something that's going to be there. Once we get to Big Ten Media Days, which, I'm going to start to dovetail into here a little bit. I think that's going to be a situation of where we'll at least start to get some ideas. And I guarantee you that Ohio State is not going to, Ryan Day isn't going to tell us everything in that it's going on. We'll get to August. We'll get to maybe see a little bit of some practices or whatnot, get a better idea of what is going on. But, I just don't know. But, in terms of the recruiting, I think that they're still doing just fine. I think you look at their corner recruiting right now, and corner's been fantastic. So, whether or not we're talking about what they're going to look like here in 21, or if we're talking about what they're going to look like in 22 and beyond based on where the recruiting is, I think that they're going to be fine. While we've been on the air, something that's been made aware to me by an Ohio State spokesperson is we're no longer going to get Chris Olave at Big Ten Media Days. No issues, but making a change. We're going to get tight end Jeremy Ruckert. I haven't had chances. I've been on the air with you guys to find out why that's the case. Zach Harrison, Thayer Munford are going to be your other two representatives. So between those three and Ryan Day will be the guys that we'll get to speak to at length on Friday, because the way that Big Ten Media Days works is 7 on one day, 7 on the next day. So Ohio State anchors Friday at Team Up North. I would say probably anchors Thursday. A lot of things going on. What are you most interested in finding out from Big Ten Media Days? I ask you, what are the questions you want? And of course, everybody's like, ask Kevin Warren if we're going to actually have a season or if he's going to cancel it. Well, I mean, there are ways to ask that without coming across and being a total jerk about it. Then again, I don't think many of y'all are going to invite Kevin Warren over to a family barbecue after the whole situation last year, canceling or taking it down to Big Ten only to cancel it, only to double down and say we're not going to revisit it, then to bring it back, but to bring it back late. And it just really was never was smooth. But, you're not going to find a single Ohio State person that's going to give away that Big Ten championship, going to give away that win over Clemson in the CFP semifinals. Obviously nobody's really happy with how that Alabama game turned out. But, Ohio State was injured, ravaged by COVID, all of that stuff. There was a lot going on that really put them in an impossible situation. But what is it you want to know? What is it what you want to know coming out of Big Ten Media Days? Because we are going to get to talk to these guys at length. And while, maybe we want to sit there and ask structural questions like what's being taken to improve the secondary. And I have some ideas on that one, so I'll jump on that one here in a second. I don't know how I asked Thayer Munford that. So, there's also the situation of where we would love to be able to be direct and be like, hey, tell us this, all BS aside or whatnot. But it's just not how the relationship works. But certainly a lot of opportunity to ask questions. I'll probably spend the next day or so driving over to Indianapolis tomorrow to come out and be able to figure that one out. But what steps are being taken to improve the secondary? I think the biggest steps are having practice. They didn't have practice last year. They had 3 spring practices. They broke for spring break. The world goes bonkers. And then you have guys suddenly going out there and having to put rocks in backpacks and do squats with that, building squat racks. And then you come back and you have a situation of where you have these really disjointed, segmented practices, because if you practice everybody together and somebody gets sick and then you have contact tracing that runs throughout the entire team, then you're shut down. So I just think that the sheer fact of the act of being able to get out there and practice, having 15 spring practices, having a spring game, having summer conditioning, having these guys working out together, being very close to fall practice to where you're going to be able to go through all of this. I think all of that inherently gives you a bit of at least a foundation to work upon. I also think that, it really showed when Ohio State lost Cameron Brown. You lose your starting guy in the Penn State game and you don't have him the rest of the way. Granted, they didn't play a lot more games after that. Was game 2. They didn't play a lot more games after all of that, but you sit there and you're green because you don't have a lot of guys who have a lot of experience. Even during the season, your practices are still very disjointed in how you're able to do things. And then it's like, oh, well, suddenly you have to create this depth. So, I think that's going to be there. I think if you go back and you look structurally at what Ohio State did, I don't think they did a lot of stuff that was very different than what they'd done the year before with Jeff Hafley. They just didn't have Jeffrey Okudah. They just didn't have Damon Arnett. They just didn't have Jordan Fuller. So a lot of it is coming into a situation of where you need to be able to develop these guys. All of these first and second year guys, maybe even third year guys, they need to step up. And it's not from lack of wanting to. I mean, I just think that they didn't have a lot of opportunity. Plus, you get in the midst of this short season where it's even less forgiving. If you have something go completely sideways on you, you're done. So they weren't able to get a lot of stuff done there. So I'm not sure if I necessarily was able to say, well, they're going to change this, and not run this and not employ this. And, I don't know. We don't know any X's and O's for sure at this point. But what I can tell you is I don't feel that Ohio State necessarily got too far away from what it was. I just think that they didn't have the personnel to be able to replicate some of the things when you're looking at some first rounders. And while Jordan Fuller was a 6th rounder, he played the whole season for the LA Rams. So obviously he was a player that his damn cats are fighting here. He was not representative of, where his draft position was, because the Rams certainly got themselves a steal there by having somebody that they trotted out there. I want to jump in here. Will Jordan Hancock and I'm assuming Ja'Kalen Johnson get playing time in this secondary? I'm not sure that anyone 7 has real game time, so why not try? Well, Cameron Brown has some experience. Marcus Williamson has some experience. So there are some guys that do have some. Ryan Watts got a little bit of, a little bit here, a little bit there. I have a bet with somebody about Ja'Kalen Johnson. I think Ja'Kalen Johnson will see a decent amount of playing time this year. I don't know. I'm not going to say he's going to start. But I think he could by the time he gets caught up to speed, because remember, he's a summer enrollee as well. I think by the time we get to all of that, he is somebody that could be a 4th corner, a 5th corner, somebody that's going to get the playing time. And let's remember this too, when we just talk about some of the situations. Ohio State didn't have a non-conference schedule last year. And obviously Ohio State was going to have to go out to Oregon, and that was going to be every bit of a challenge, but it didn't have its other 2 non-con games. Those non-con games are so important. And I'm not taking anything away from, who is it? so like BG and Buffalo this year. Not taking away anything away from whoever it is, or is it Akron? I don't even remember. I don't have the schedule fresh in my mind at this point. I guess I should probably look at it before heading to Indianapolis. But those are the games to where you get your twos and your threes and pretty much anybody that you're quote unquote not redshirting. And redshirt rules are different now to where you can play 4 games and maintain that year. But that's going to be so important. You didn't have that opportunity. You didn't have the chance to trot guys out there, so you just didn't have the depth. But, I think it will be important to get some of these young guys some experience because Seven Banks, Marcus Williamson, they're probably not going to be here next year. So, that's certainly going to be, a question that they're going to have to they're going to have to look at. ET's eligibility. I'm ET. Are we talking about EA? Maybe are we talking about Pala EA Naote? Are we talking about him not appearing on the roster yet? That's certainly something I plan on asking Ryan Day about, and I have a feeling I won't be the first or only one to ask him. That still appears to be an NC2A clearinghouse eligibility transfer situation. And there we go. Where goes one jumps in and says EA. That'll get sorted out. That would just be a real bad look if the NC2A is like, well, you got into the portal too early. We're going to punish you for doing that and not clear you. But with that being said, we know there's a glacier-like movement of the NC2A when it comes to a lot of things like this. And because of that, they're just going to move kind of at their own pace. And I think it only really becomes an issue to when they get to the start of fall camp, fall practice, what have you. And once they get there, then it's going to be a little bit more important because, he can go lift weights. He can go do stuff. He can hang out with the team. There's nothing that says you can't hang out with the team. You're just not appearing on the roster at this point. But once the team comes together, whether or not they do a hotel check-in and all of that good stuff and have that team building and everything else, that's where the problem is. So the NC2A needs to act here soon. I expect something relatively soon, but I also never want to hook my wagon to predicting the timeline of the NC2A because, it just doesn't, that's just, a no-win situation. You just don't know because I don't think the NC2A knows what's going on in terms of that. I just think it's a case of, all right, well, let's go to the next file. All right, what's this here? Oh, some guy wants to transfer or whatever. They'll get to it when they get to it. It should be fine. So that's my view there. What steps have been taken to ensure a season of another pandemic happens? I don't know. I know that the MAC is having their media days right now, and they said that they're not going to be scholarship limits on teams. And if you're unable to field a team and go, it's a forfeit. So that's going on in the MAC. So I know that there's encouragement for vaccination and things there. I'm really not going to allow this to turn into a political thing. I'm not going to get into that hot potato on the politics of, vaccination or whatever, because it's not for me to judge. Politics are like, rear ends, we all have them and they're generally dirty, and they generally stink. So I'm not going to get into any of that, but there's highly encouraging teams to promote vaccination or whatnot. I beyond that, I don't know. I certainly see a situation that unvaccinated players, kind of like what we saw with the NFL, that came out of saying you're either going to be in this one group or you're going to be in this other group that's there. And, if you're in this one group, which is like the vaccinated group, you're going to have this group of freedoms. And if you're in this other group, you're going to be tested daily. You're going to have to go eat in the hallway. You're going to have to do all this stuff. We're not going to get to a point where there's going to be anything that's going to be forced. I just don't see that. But, again, I'm really tiptoeing around a line that I don't want to get to. So I'm not. So, we're going to have the opportunity to be able to talk to Kevin Warren and Ryan Day and other coaches about some of these situations, about what that's going to be. And I guarantee you, we're gonna be pumping out plenty of content, whether it's here during like a live video show, whether or not it's on our audio podcast, certainly over on Buckeye Grove. If you're not a member, sign up for BuckeyeGrove.com. Look in the comment section below. Get all of our information. Get on board. Join the Horseshoe Lounge. All of that good stuff. Be sure to like the podcast. Like what we're doing. Why not throw out a super chat contribution? Nothing wrong with that. All of that helps. It is because of you all that we're able to do this stuff. But, those thumbs ups mean a lot too. Give us a thumbs up. Let us know we're doing a good job. We certainly enjoy that. Gotten 6 so far. We've gotten up to a peak of about 17, 18 concurrent viewers. I tried to do a little bit of a better job of promoting the show going in. I think that next week, coming out of media days, we might have a little bit more to talk about, and I think that might draw more people. We're kind of in the dog days of summer. We're going to have recruiting picking back up at the end of the month in terms of where, schools are going to be able to have guys back on. We're going to see a Buckeye barbecue. They're going to have some top uncommitted players there. Obviously, CJ Hicks, Captain Buckeye, he's going to be there because he's CJ Hicks, Captain Buckeye. That's what he does. He recruits. I mean, seriously, if Ohio State wanted to recruit, some national merit scholar, he'd, to come in and be in the zoology department, he'd probably say, let me take a swing at this. That's just who CJ Hicks is. So, I know that has really endeared him to fans, his passion toward recruiting for Ohio State. I do want to talk about TBT a little bit. And I know that we have a situation of where there's, Ohio State fan base certainly much more tilted toward football than basketball, but I prepared some things. So, I kind of want to talk about it. We got the big news recently that Aaron Kraft would be back with Carmen's crew. Carmen's crew looking to avenge an early exit last year where Ohio State had a first-round bye when the TBT was hosted in Columbus, Ohio, Nationwide Arena in a bubble, lost to House of Pain, which was an Illinois alumni team, and coming off the year that Carmen's crew won the whole darn thing. So very disappointing. They're coming back. We kind of thought last year might be Kraft's swan song. Ohio State was able to get him back. Was it a situation of where Jared Solinger, the GM, had to, of course, let me decline that phone call, had to wine and dine him, or was it more of a case of where Aaron Kraft was able to come in and convince Solinger that he was good to go? I'm looking for it right here, and let's hit play. How much of a sell job was it getting Aaron back on the team?
It was more like Aaron selling me, based off the dates. And once the dates dropped, he realized he can do it. So he was just selling me, trying to play in the TBT. But what Aaron does, it doesn't take a lot of skill. It just takes a lot of hard work, and you can't take that away from him.
We just went back and forth. It was more of Jared was trying to protect. I think he was trying to protect me and my family. He knew the year was harder, so wanted to give me the time off that I think I needed and deserved. I kind of told him, hey, I was leaning towards wanting to play if you want me to. So he graciously obliged, and we'll see if I can make him proud.
I'm glad he's back. I know we were in his ear throughout the year, so it's good to have him back. We're excited to have him back on the team. We've got some new guys, too, that we feel are going to help us. So, whenever he wants to play, he always has a spot.
How's he been looking out there? He says he's not in shape.
I think he's in better shape than what he'll probably give him credit for. It's probably not the shape that he's used to being in, but none of us really are, so.
Yeah, I certainly know that I'm not in the shape that I wanted to be when I was in college, and I certainly wasn't a highly skilled athlete that played in NC2A tournaments. So, it's going to be a fun run, and they're going to start playing Friday at the Cavelli Center, 9 p.m. For those not familiar, let's pull up the roster. There it is. You have Shannon Scott. You got a couple guys that weren't part of the Ohio State program, like Julian Mavunga, Jeff Gibbs. But you've got Shannon Scott, Aaron Kraft, Keyshawn Woods, Costa Kufis, David Lighty, Evan Ravenel, Linzel Smith, John Diebler, William Buford. These are guys that, for many of us, these were the guys you watched when you were in college or just out of college. You got a lot of guys that Ohio State won a lot of games with these dudes. And it's just going to be fun to watch them get out there. And obviously get out and try and right the wrong of last year. And the wrong was that they just didn't play well. It wasn't like it was a controversial game or anything. House of Pain just went out there and flat out beat them. It was a 10-point game. It wasn't like it went down to a bucket. It wasn't like there was a call. You're certainly dealing with a lot of uncertainty in the world. They're in the bubble, whether, maybe they didn't have the roster set up the way that they wanted to or whatnot, but they're not making any excuses. I mean, and the winner of this whole tournament wins $1 million to split amongst themselves. So, that's not a bad day at the office for guys that were already going to probably be working on these types of things during the off season as guys get ready to go back overseas to go play in France or Italy or Turkey or wherever they're playing. And then of course you have Aaron Kraft, who's finishing up medical school. He still has one more year. As he said, this is his last summer off. So, I mean, he's got the potential, I don't think that there's going to be another run in him. So I think that, Carmen's crew is certainly going to want to send him off the right way. Certainly wouldn't hurt to put a little bit more money in the bank with his young family and everything else. We'll see. So are you guys excited about TBT? Will you watch? It will be broadcast on the ESPN family of channels. I know Ohio State's opening game, 9 p.m. on Friday, will be on ESPN against Mid-American Unity, which, needless to say, probably a team filled with MAC stars. So we'll see what comes out of that. But I certainly wanted to talk about the TBT. As we had the opportunity to go to Media Day yesterday, talk to some of these guys, talk to Aaron, talk to Jared Solinger, talk to John Diebler, kind of get their thoughts on all of it. I get really excited. It's going to be the first live event that I've been able to cover probably the way that I'm used to in a while, because even though we did cover football last year, it was still very much Zoom calls, hands off, things of that nature. So, it'll be interesting to see how this is set up and be able to go see some basketball. Unfortunately, I won't be there on Friday night's game. I'll still be on my way back from Indianapolis. So Ohio State better not trip up. I'm sorry, Carmen's crew. It's not a university sanctioned team. It's Carmen's crew. Remember, I think they were called Scarlet and Gray in the iteration of this team. University's like, probably should change that. So then they became Carmen's crew. Let me jump back to your questions again. Be sure to jump in with your questions, comments. Want to reach out to me outside of the show? My email address is down below. You can hit me on Twitter. However you want to, let me know what you think about this show, because you are the most vital part of this show. I can sit there and talk until I'm red in the face, blue in the face, whatever. It's not necessarily really going to matter what I'm saying there. You're the one that drive this show. So I'm very, I'm very appreciative you guys take this 45 minutes to an hour plus to talk with me as I talk to you. Do JK and Jordan need to put on more weight? Both have a chance to corner. Both listed as 170 as of now. Let me jump in here. Let me see what the university has them listed at on their roster, because we've already seen some guys. I mean, look at Jansen Dunn, who has already posted pictures on social of his weight gains since he's been part of the program. Granted, his dad was the one who posted some of those pictures, and because of that, the early pictures were of him as like a sophomore in high school. And with that being said, obviously you're going to put on some weight from your sophomore year of high school going into your freshman year of college, but the gains are real. I mean, Ja'Kalen Johnson's at 175, Jordan Hancock, he's at 170, so those weights seem to be kind of right. I don't think you have to necessarily be a rocked up 195 to be able to play. But with that being said, I think it's a situation of where you need to be able to play the physicality that's expected to succeed in Division I college football, especially high major, Power 5, top of that, top 5 team nationally year in and year out. So you have to be good enough to go out there and wrestle that playing time away from anybody else. So I think we're going to see them put on a little bit of weight, but there's some body reshaping that's going on there too. You come in at 170 pounds and you have 4 pounds of cheeseburgers that you need to work off or whatever. You're going to work that up and replace it with 4 pounds of muscle. You're still going to be 170, but you're still going to see a little bit of a body transformation, just maybe not necessarily a situation of where, I've got a lot of pounds of Skyline chili and things that I need to work out with. I've been trying to find a way to convince Ohio State and Mickey Marotti to do like a Biggest Loser with the media so I can get some free personal training, but I think I might not make it through the first half hour. My little heart might explode or something. So, we'll see on there. Where goes one? Speed and skill level is everything. Certainly, that's all going to be there. We're not dealing. Ohio State certainly likes the big corner, but when we say the big corner, I mean that 6 foot plus corner. We've seen guys that have been kind of slight. I mean, it's just kind of the situation. Not everybody's metabolism is going to allow you to put on a ton of weight. I mean, it's a very different situation, very different position. Nick Petit-Frere couldn't put on weight for years. He was having to wake up in the middle of the night and have smoothies and things of that nature to be able to not only get up to 300 pounds, but to be able to stay at 300 pounds. So, very different in terms of a defensive back and what their regimen is and whatnot. But, I think it's going to be a situation of where they are going to have to just do things the right way. I mean, it's not going to be a race to get to XYZ weight, because that's always dangerous of just saying, well, we just need to get you to this weight. And if you do that haphazardly, which Ohio State never would, they have the nutritionists, they have so many programs in place to help these guys succeed. They're not going to just race a guy to a certain weight and be able to just say, well, go, because, the key to you getting in is you being 183. No, the key to you getting in is being able to know the system and to have the speed and the physicality and everything else that we need. And I don't know if 5 additional pounds is necessarily going to be the tipping point on whether or not your playbook. You have the hips, you have the ability to be physical out there and mix it up. So yeah, I think that the goal is going to be to get good weight on them at some point, but I don't think that's going to be we're not going to take your black stripe off until you sit there and you finish that plate of nachos. I mean, that's just not going to be the case. And I oversimplify it just to make a point. Let me jump in here. Where goes one? Thank you for the kind words. Means a lot. We love being able to provide the content to you guys. I mean, obviously, the website BuckeyeGrove is my main gig. That's where I want everybody to go in, be a member there. That helps me out. That allows me to continue to do all of this. I'll do these podcasts weekly. If there's enough demand, I'll do them twice a week. But at this point, I just, I need to see if we can have consistent numbers, if we can grow the audience. If you have any suggestions of how we can grow the audience, be sure to let me know. Robert, I've got a question from you on the queue, but I want to get to. I promised on Twitter we would talk a little bit about brisket and barbecue, and I'm going to do that. And if I see the numbers just completely crater, I'll know not to do that again. But a lot of my friends know that that's my hobby. Some guys like to golf, some guys like to fish. I enjoy cooking. I enjoy going out and using my smoker and being able to smoke briskets and pork butts and things of that nature. Had a lot of friends over the weekend. Was able to do some brisket. You can see on the left, those are my slices. On the right, that's the point. Didn't do burnt ends just because of the timing, and I knew a lot of people were coming in and only staying for about an hour and a half in the middle. I know that's hard to tell. That's a mac and cheese. I wasn't particularly happy with the mac and cheese. I'm going to probably tweak the recipe next time around when it comes down to it. Not sure if that works is about my brisket or is about getting to his question about name, image, likeness. But I certainly do enjoy the opportunity to be able to cook. That's, certainly one of my goals would be if we got the community here large enough, or at least some Central Ohioans, to be able and do a cookout or whatever. Throw in a couple bucks for what it costs there, or somebody could maybe be the guy to sponsor it through the super chat or whatever. But, I think that's, certainly would be something fun to do in terms of getting to be able to put names and faces together. I know also a lot of times people like the anonymity of the internet, and that's cool too. I mean, that's cool too. Obviously, I have my name out there. I have the people who love me. There are probably a couple people who aren't a big fan of me. So be it. I mean, it is what it is. Let me get to Robert's question here. Will the Big Ten have NIL guidelines? I don't know. Will the NC2A have guidelines? Will Congress act? I mean, what's going to be the situation? I just don't know. I don't know who's going to be able to supersede. And do you really want a situation to where we get to a point of where you have multiple levels setting what the playing field's going to be? Because it's going to be, do you want to have it to where the Big Ten, who may have one view compared to the SEC comes in and says, well, we're going to do this and we're going to limit X, Y, Z, A, and B. And the SEC is like, well, we're not. You put all your teams at a competitive disadvantage, sort of like canceling your season. So, I don't know if I want to see the conference come in. I think I would like to see some sort of uniform rules in place to try and keep creative interpretations out of that. But that has to come from a level much higher than the conference. That has to come from the NC2A or something there. And, there was a lot of news about Mark Emmert coming in and saying that, looking like about maybe decentralizing the NC2A a little bit, which is interesting in of itself. But, I didn't have enough time to read all of that. But, I don't know. I think this is going to be something that the NC2A and some certain extent is going to have to come in, or there's going to have to be something. I really wish Congress would just stick to Congressing. Do your jobs, do what it is we sent you to Washington for. Don't worry so much about this. But I think the NC2A needs to set something, and it needs to be in a situation to where teams can't skirt the rules or whatever. Because again, we had umpteen million years where it was like, don't pay the players, and programs were paying the players. So just because the NC2A does something doesn't mean that people are necessarily going to adhere to it. And I'm not going to get into this scandal versus that scandal. I mean, certainly something going on at Arizona State with what came out in an expose a couple of weeks ago, but we know that it might be about 2030 by the time we hear anything on that. So, I don't know. So, sorry, Robert, I don't know if I have a great answer for you there, but I don't know if I want to see it come from the conference level, because with all of the conferences out there, I mean, 5 Power 5 conferences, whatever, you got 5 in the group of 5 or 6 or whatever. I don't know if there's going to be enough uniformity to where I think you could create greater divisions, greater inequities by having the conferences putting these out compared to having something that's either done on the school level or whatever. I mean, so, I don't know. I mean, if you're a school that is really restrictive in terms of what you're doing, that's kind of on you. You made that decision. You put yourself in that decision. If your conference comes in and it's like, you can't do X, Y, Z, A, and B, that's no fault of your own. That's your conference. That's your conference coming out and doing something stupidly or imprudently or however you want to put that. So I don't know. That's not how I want to see it. Let me bring back up the brisket image as we kind of talk about some things. Yes, yum. It was very good. My wife got out of Dodge because she didn't want to be around all of my sports writer friends, but she came back and had some last night. I just was too busy to really sit down and have a full meal. She said it was very good. Hey, Yakov, hadn't seen you earlier in the show. For $250,000, would I become a vegan for the rest of my life? I think there's something to be said about quality of life, and I'm not taking anything away from a vegetarian, a vegan, a pescatarian, anybody who makes a decision for themselves. All right, I'm a fat guy. I like to eat. I mean, and honestly, really the reason I probably stand to lose a weight is because I just don't work out. It's not that I eat a ton, but I don't know if I'm 49. So, what do I have left? 20, 30 plus years. That really does not translate out to a lot of money over the course of that time. And anybody who knows me well knows that I don't really like to eat vegetables. My idea of vegetables with a meal is a baked potato and a salad, or a bowl of French onion soup to go with my steak. And the reality is that I like butter and sour cream and bacon on my baked potato. I like the cheese on top of my French onion soup. I like blue cheese dressing. I like cheese on my salad. So I couldn't even have necessarily what I want. So I don't know. It would have to be, and I know you weren't sitting there saying, calling me fat. That's, other people will, I'm sure, but you weren't doing it. But, I just don't know. I think it would have to be something that was a higher dollar figure, and it would have to be a situation of where it was a recurring payment, because, what's going to happen if I sit there and I agree to it, and like 9 months down the line, I fall off the wagon? Am I going to have to cut you a check back for $250 large? That's just going to set up an untenable situation there. So, my immediate answer is no. No, I'm not going to do that for $250,000, especially the vegan part of it. I mean, vegetarian, still no, but I think I would have at least a little bit of a better chance of living a vegetarian lifestyle than a vegan lifestyle. But both of those seem pretty far-fetched for me. Yeah, eating vegetarian about 3 times a week and couldn't go full on. My wife, she has done some lean and green meals, through, she does CrossFit and some things, and she's done some cleanse days to where she does things like that. And I can't follow her. I mean, I couldn't cut red meat out of my diet. I could probably stand to eat some more chicken and brown rice and things of those natures, but I don't like vegetables all that much to be able to do that. I guarantee you this is not a vegan brisket. This isn't I don't know. We know that tofu turkey is tofurkey. Tofeef? Tobeef? I don't know. I'm not doing that. This was 100% USDA prime from Costco. Unless they pulled a fast one on me, it certainly was not a vegan option. Love red meat and spuds, absolutely. One of the great opportunities in Indianapolis is a great steak city. I certainly shouldn't be frittering too much money around, but I may find my way to have a small steak dinner while I'm out there. But time will tell. Let me bring myself out there. Hold on. I read the book, The Carnivore Cord, and loved the carnivore lifestyle. You would too. I always would joke that there was a point in my life when my metabolism was a lot faster. I was on the seafood diet. I would seafood and eat it. But yeah, it would just be difficult. So, and just to make matters worse, I belong to a couple of those subscription services to where they send high quality steaks and things. I backed off of it here recently because my freezer's full, and I have a bunch of stuff that I would have to get through first. I mean, so that just seems like an impossibility. But what about you guys? Could you sit there and do that? Is 250,000 large? Is that your price? Could you do it there? $1 million? It was funny, like on Facebook, and I'm going to call it a show here as we're a little bit over an hour in a second. I was on Facebook, and there's always, most of it's just phishing. Your afterlife name is going to be your social security number and your PIN number, just stupid stuff like that, to, obviously phishing for information. But, there was one on there, and it was such a ridiculous astronomical number. It was like, for $3 billion, billion with a B, would you never buy alcohol again? And it was phrased in a way of saying not buying it. Well, if I had $3 billion, I'd have somebody go buy my alcohol for me, or I would buy a brewery and go quality control or whatever. But $3 billion, not $250,000. We certainly would be able to get into a situation of where, I don't know, I could maybe give up tacos, or maybe give up nachos, or maybe give up lasagna or something. I don't know if I could give up meat altogether. I have a buddy who works in the near meat. I don't know what to call it. I don't know what necessarily to call the industry, but he works in there. I know he wants me to come over and try some of the product. He's a good friend, so I'll do it, but I'm not necessarily sure that I'm going to be able to pull that one off. Am I heading to Indy? Yes. Will I get a chance to speak with Jim Harbaugh? Yes. I'm not sure what the crowd is going to be like around him. Sometimes there are diminishing returns in terms of, do you sell out to be able to talk to somebody who's not necessarily your beat and miss out on getting all this other sound? But I really would like to be able to get Jim Harbaugh. As you saw, those who have been with the show the whole time today, I'm able to drop video in. My goal will be to do a special cut up of maybe some Big Ten Media Day video and audio here on the show, especially if I'm doing Ecamm Live next week. But once again, certainly a lot of tools on here that I like. Let me know in the comments if you like this, if you notice a difference. I mean, obviously, I've tried it 3 different ways. I've used StreamYard. I've gone directly through YouTube. Now I'm using Ecamm Live. My goal is to make the most seamless show for you I want something that's going to get out there and have the best distribution for you. Up to 10 likes, definitely appreciate that. I know we're going to get a lot more once people get in the replay. So that's all going to be there as well. But, I think we're coming to an end here. Unless I got any final questions, I'll filibuster for another 30 seconds because I know there's about a 20-second delay from where I'm at live to where it is in terms of what you're seeing on YouTube. So my calls to action sometimes take a minute to get to you. So my final call to action, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Be sure to give me a thumbs up. Be sure to hit that bell. Let me know that you like what's going on, what you're seeing. Get into those comments. Tell me what you want to hear about. Send me an email, kevin@BuckeyeGrove.com. Let me know what it is you want us to talk about. I don't generally generate topics for the show until the day before. If I start doing more of these multimedia type shows, yeah, I'm going to probably start developing it out a little bit sooner, but you dictate what it is we talk about. If I could come in and say, I want to talk about brisket and I want to talk about synchronized swimming, and if you all decide you want to talk about something else, guess what? We're going to talk about what you want to talk about. I don't care what it is that I prepare for. So give me that feedback. Let me know. Be sure to jump in with those super chat contributions when you can. Those are great as well. We're at the end of the show. Probably don't want to do one now. The benefits of getting your question pinned and everything else diminishing at this point. We've had some good response in the previous shows. We're definitely going to jump on board with one no later than the start of next week. Maybe if news really warrants while I'm in Indianapolis, I'll do another one. But lots of stuff to talk about coming out of that. I want to thank you for being part of the show. Once again, I'm your host, Kevin Noon. This is the BIA, having a hell of a day today, BIA live podcast. Thanks so much. We'll see you again very soon.